Hello listeners and welcome to the Tyrantcast. My name is Mitch and I am the Hive Tyrant. Tonight I present the 23rd episode of a podcast-style, primarily audio discussion topic-centric video series, and for tonight's episode it's once again just Sam and I. So, Sam, how are you and what have you been up to lately?
I'm good, man. I have been up to playing a lot of Conquest, as per usual. I've been playing a lot of Elite decks. I've been playing a really fun Nazdrag Elite deck. Still been toying around with my Shadow Sun Elite deck. Been playing a new Mavros Elite deck. Played a game as Maxim. Played a few games against Maxim. It's just kind of been Elite heavy. Like every deck I face is like an Elite deck, it seems.
Yeah.
And that makes your own Elite decks not as powerful when you have heavy hitters on the opposite side of the table, too. So, although Conquest has been on a bit of a break the last couple days, because I know I'm a few weeks late to the party, but I'm usually much later than that to these things. But I have been, I have delved in headfirst to Stranger Things on Netflix.
Okay. It seems everybody's talking about it.
Yes.
I've not seen it.
So I was like late to the party, but after 2 weeks of everyone talking about it on Facebook, I was like, okay, I'll check it out. And it is fantastic. So it's kind of like, I described it to my wife as like 80s era Steven Spielberg meets Goonies meets early, like kind of PG-13-ish Stephen King. So very good stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I'm not even a Winona Ryder fan, and it's still good. So I know some people are all about Winona Ryder, but that's not me. So.
Sure. Not so much, what is it, retailers or whatever, that shoplifting debacle or...
Yeah, right.
I don't know.
Right.
But it seems like the Elite meta is very real. There have been so many cards. I feel out of the loop a little bit. I haven't commentated any matches in a while and haven't really observed or played mini games, but it just seems all I'm hearing about is Elites, and that's cool that you're actually experiencing Maxim in action. What are your initial impressions of AM Warlord 4?
Well, I'm 1-0 against him, I'm 1-0 with him and 2-0 against him, or maybe I'm 1-1 with him. Either way, so I mean, I guess whatever. He's either 1-3 or 1-4 in my games, but I think he's good. I think he's a little different. Like, I built this like really support heavy deck with 16 supports in it. And I really liked it. I still need to kind of tweak it, I think. But I went with Space Marines, even though I know that's like giving up Ammo Depot. But I had enough supports as it was, and I thought, even though Land Raider doesn't do a lot to protect my vehicles, it does protect the Tech Marine Aspirant, which is a great card. And it's just it's a 3/7 with 3 command for maybe $5 or maybe $3 if you have STC or something. So, it's been pretty good. Yeah.
Well, a lot of cool potential, and not to get too ahead of ourselves, but we recently saw the United Kingdom National Champion crowned. It was our 2015 World Champion, Varun Ketterpal, and he ended up winning it with Kugoth Plaguefather, and in his deck, it was almost like... almost all of his army units were elites. It was pretty ridiculous. Frenzied Bloodthirster, Black Legion Helldrake, all kinds of powerful cards in there.
Yeah, and no Splendid Path Acolyte, which was interesting. So, but he kind of explained that on Card Game DB, so or Facebook or somewhere I saw. But so I don't know. I just been playing these elite decks, seeing these elite decks, and my buddy and I finally sat down and played some Warhammer Quest adventure card game, which is really fun. So we're gonna do a little campaign on that, which should be good. So,
well, fantastic. And I think Black Crusade signups are underway as we're sitting and recording this. Generally, it takes me a little while to edit these episodes and publish them, post them. But what's the Black Crusade update, Sam?
Yeah, you've got until the 21st to sign up. So, there's I guess as we're recording this, the 17th. By the time if you listen to this early, you might have a day or two left, depending on you when Mitch gets it out. But you have until 9 p.m. Central Time on the 21st to sign up. So, we've got 104 players. So We probably won't break last season's big record of 187, but it'll probably still end up being the second biggest turnout we've had, which is good. And hopefully we'll have enough. Hopefully we'll have a surge of Asian and Australian players join up, because right now I think I have 8, and I need like more than double that to make their own division. Otherwise, it's just not worth it. So yeah, we'll see. But it looks good, and I'm not gonna obviously say who, but we have all of our warlords but 2 have at least 1 pledge, and it was pretty surprising to me, the 2 that don't have a pledge. So sign up and you might win a token, because we got I think 4 that only have 1 pledge and 2 with no pledges. So there's a chance to win a little faction specific initiative token out there for a few of these guys. So but come sign up.
Yeah, if you're listening to this in August 2016, then you might have a day or 2 to sign up for the tournament, and it's cool to hear that almost all the warlords have pledges. And in case someone is listening to this episode in the grim darkness of the far future, Sam, if someone pledges to a warlord, that means they're basically making a pinky promise to play the same warlord throughout the duration of the tournament. They can change their mind at any time, but then they give up their chance of winning some exclusive swag in the form of like an anodized metal laser engraved metal first planet token thing.
Yeah. So there's no penalty for jumping ship. If you pledge, say, I don't know, Barstool, and go 0-3 or 0-4, you can be like, I'm gonna at least save face and win a few games and switch to my bread and butter XY warlord. You can do that with no penalty, but you just won't be in the running for the token. So
right.
Yeah.
But, looking forward to the Black Crusade. It should be a good season, whether it's record-breaking attendance or not. Looking forward to getting back in the saddle, commentating some games, maybe even playing some games. But, Sam, as always on the Tyrantcast, we've got a fair few things to cover. Today is going to be our Searching for Truth War Pack review. That is Pack 4 of the Death World cycle. Fantasy Flight Games was once again courteous enough to afford you and I some spoiler cards. This time, therefore, Against the Great Enemy. That's Pack 5. And how fitting that the Hive Tyrant finally gets some Tyranids faction spoilers. We already talked a little bit about UK Nationals, but congratulations again to Varun Ketterpal, whom I've met myself, and you had the opportunity to meet. So world champion, 2-time UK national champion. I suppose it's fair to say he's probably the most esteemed or accomplished Conquest player on the planet. So
yeah, I would say so. I mean, it's always tough, these who's the best type debates, but as the trophy case stands now, I would put him at number 1.
Right. So by no means does he win every game, but he's one of the only, well, that might be overstepping my boundaries. I was going to say he's one of the only premier tier players that I've never beaten, but Dustin Drake and many others I've never played against, Seth Rosen. So anyways, point being, Sam, it's time for our Tales from the Tabletop segment. You mentioned some elite games, but what are some memorable stories you've experienced lately?
Yeah, well, last week it was nice. A couple guys from the Northeast came down, both like independently from one another, to Kansas City for some stuff. So
and this was like in response to a Craigslist personal?
No. Kay Warrender, he runs the Alignment Wheel Octagon tourney. He works for a company who's headquartered out of Kansas City, so he had to come here for some work stuff. And so we met up and played a few games. Then coincidentally that day, Eric Todd, I think is his name. He just threw up a thing on Facebook and was like, "Hey, we're looking to move to Kansas City, and we're kind of in town checking out some houses and stuff like that or wherever. So anybody want to play tonight?" So I was like, "Yeah, come on by." So I had a couple good games against Warrender here. We had Shadow Sun versus Maxim. so it was kind of another one of these elite on elite things. And dude, those missile pods were doing work for me. I think I played one first turn and recurred it every turn.
Jesus.
And I just kept blowing up his stuff, and he couldn't really outdo that in combination with the army units I had. And then we played Shadow Sun versus Onrakir elites, and I was able to win that as well. And then I got out the old Dirty Dozen, which I've noticed does not fare well in the elite meta, by the way. And he crushed me with Onrakir. So that was actually my first loss to Tyranids in like 13 or 14 games. I'm sorry, not Tyranids, Necrons.
Okay.
So yeah, he like wiped the board with me. But and then Eric and his girlfriend or wife, I'm not sure what it was, but the two of them had shown up by that point. So I was rolling against Eric. Things were looking good. I had to bully, I think it was turn 4, and I had to like threw everything I had the first planet because he had 2 Wild Riders on planet 2. He had a Starbane's Council with mobility on planet 2, and he had another Starbane's with a jet bike on it. So like I knew I had to like go heavy at planet 1 or else he could just come over and win it. And I did, and the next turn he drew Doom, his 1 copy of Doom in the deck, and he blew up. It was like 32 resources worth of cards in my HQ, including the attachments. And it was over right then. I think the next 2 cards I drew were both gun drones or something, and I had no one to put them on. So it was like,
wow. Yeah,
that went rough. And then I played his girl, and that was I was running Subject Omega, and she was running Zerathur. And it was not an elite matchup, but I was able to I had like no infest cards of any kind until like the 3rd turn. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of had this glut of resources I had been saving, and I won the first planet, and then it was infested, and then I predationed to where Zerathur was, and I like dropped a unit, dropped a Ymgarl factor, bloodied Zera with a No Mercy, killed his Flayed Skull Slaver, and then Genie Implantation that, and killed all the rest of his stuff, like, wow. Or her stuff. So yeah, it was. I haven't played a lot of Omega, but it was pretty fun to just like go to town. And I think earlier in the turn, I used another No Mercy to win the first planet. So it was like within 1 turn, it was 2 No Mercies, and she just couldn't come back from it. So it was a pretty good game.
That sounds
for me,
ridiculous. Yeah, I was going to say, not to comment on the proportion of male to female players, but it's good that, the one time I hear of a female player playing some Conquest, she gets absolutely crushed. So great job, Sam. Way to leave her with a real good, positive experience.
It was funny, too, because, she was like, I don't want to play Sam. He's good. I'm like, look, I'm nobody. Just because you hear me on the Tyrantcast doesn't mean I'm Varun Ketterpal or whoever. Like I'm just a dude. And, but like Eric convinced her to sit down and play me after our match. And like, as things were kind of starting to spiral badly for her, I have never played Conquest in real life against a female. And she gave me that look that like only a female can give to a male, which is like, basically like, you're in so much trouble, you little shit. And like, I was like kind of intimidated. Like, I think I got this in the bag, but that like she is staring daggers through me, and it is playing mind games with me. So it was kind of funny. Yeah,
right. Well, sounds like a hell of a time, I guess. I don't know, it kind of reminds me of my regional championship where you feel like there's so much pressure, in a sense, to perform like you're Sam from the internet. You're supposed to be a god among mere mortals or whatever, so...
Well, that god got 32 bucks worth of cards smashed out by a $4 Doom, so I wasn't feeling too good then.
Heart of the cards worked against you right there.
That's right.
But, Sam, like I mentioned before, Fantasy Flight Games was kind enough to send us some new spoiler cards, therefore Pack 5 of the Death World cycle Against the Great Enemy, the pack, which is going to contain Jane Czar. Even though I'm the resident Tyranid here, why don't you do the honor of introducing the first of 2 Tyranids faction cards?
All right, so first up we have the 4-cost army unit Lictor Vine Lurker. This has got the same artwork that we saw on
Jungles of Nectivus.
Jungles of Nectivus, yeah, correct. So it's this kind of spiny, spindly, Tyranid thing coming down on top of this unsuspecting, guardsman. And it is a 1-hammer 3/3 with a deep strike cost of 2. So if you deep strike this guy, he only costs 3. Now you don't get the command hammer, but it's a 3/3 for 3 if you deep strike it.
Right.
And he has the reaction, after you deep strike this unit, discard 1 card at random from your opponent's hand. So this is interesting. I mean, to my knowledge, there's no choke Nid decks out there.
Yeah.
But I was kind of comparing it to Murder of Razor Wings, where it's a 1 cost, no command, 1/1.
Mm-hmm.
And they cannot take any attachments. Whereas this is a 3 cost, 3/3 that does the same thing. And if you're playing Omega, you can indeed, throw a Ymgarl factor onto this thing. So I think it's got a little upside there because it can take the attachments. So it's not like a auto include, and I would not want to pay its 4 costs in the deploy phase. But I think for a net of 3, this is a decent card.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I mean, random discard is random discard. Sometimes you hit something that's garbage, and sometimes you hit absolute solid gold. The number of times I've seen somebody chuck their, game-saving copy of Preemptive Barrage or an equivalent is a little bit heartbreaking, so it's kind of random. You mentioned there's no Tyranids choke deck. The best thing I could think of is using Keening Maliceptor or Savage Warrior Prime to really abuse Barless, but I think realistically it's just this is a decent unit if you're playing with the other Lictor.
Stalking Lictor.
Yeah, the Stalking Lictor, where you've got your 2 command icons going around. If you're doing a decent job of choking cards, this can really punish somebody that's holding on to some decent stuff.
Yeah, I like that it does seem like it could fit well with any 3 of those Synapse units. So that's kind of cool, too, that it's versatile.
Yeah. So it strikes me as playable, but I don't think it's exactly crazy. But I'm excited to see what it does. Yeah.
Well, let's move on to the better card here, Mitch. What do we have for our next one?
Sure. So this is a support. It costs 0. It's unique. It's Invasion Site. Its location trait and reaction. After an elite unit you control is destroyed, sacrifice this support to gain X resources. X is equal to that unit's printed cost. So if you're playing elites, and we've started seeing a lot of Tyranids decks kind of surface during UK Nationals, during the North American Continental Championships, a lot of people are playing Tyranids, a lot of people are playing elites. If you're crazy enough to run a Burrowing Trigon that gets killed, you could sack this 0-cost support to gain 10 resources.
Yeah, I mean, it costs nothing. Now, granted, it's a support and it's a location, so it's got a big target on it for destruction.
Yeah.
But you know what? If they're blowing this up, it just means you spent $0 to have them waste a card effect or money or both on a support that costs nothing, keeping maybe some of your more valuable supports, free and clear, so to speak. So I like it. I mean, it's printed cost, so if you used a digestion pool and or an STC to get this thing out at a discount, you can actually make money on it, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like this thing.
I mean, it's cool. It's unique, like you said, but you're going to be sacrificing it anyways. So use one, play another. 0-cost deploy stall is always cool, just in putting out the support. So frankly, if you're, unless you're drawing just your minimum number of cards, I think this is very cool. If you know that this is in your deck, maybe you slightly pursue cards more than resources. And I just think the fact that it is indeed printed cost makes this very strong. So I think people rightfully complain that Tyranids are a little bit underpowered as a faction, and I think this is going to be a really significant card. Tyranids are already doing okay in the current meta, and I think this is really going to help them just have a leg up on the competition.
Yeah, cool card.
Yeah, so I suppose that's the long and short of it. 2 new Tyranids that we're going to be seeing. Next pack, Pack 5, there was something like, I don't know, a week delay between packs 3 and 4. Who knows when we're actually going to see Against the Great Enemy. Maybe it'll be a month from now. Who knows? But I'm just excited to see what's still to come for the Nids in Pack 6. But, Sam, the reason that you and I got together is not just because I'm kind of OCD about this and we have to record every 2 weeks, but we've got a new war pack to take a look at. So we've got Searching for Truth. It introduces Illuminor Szeras, which is going to be Necron Warlord 3. He's all about healing, so let's talk a little bit about him. So he's Scholar trait. He's a 1/8. He begins with 7 cards in hand, but only 6 resources. So he's not the most combat-capable warlord in the world. You're kind of at a little bit of a handicap at first when it comes to resources here, but his reaction is after you remove any amount of damage from a Necron army unit you control, gain 1 resource. So I suppose, what are your first thoughts on Szeras?
Well, the $6 kind of stinks, but 8 HP is the most we've seen on a Hail Warlord other than TC Hammer, so pretty durable, and we know he's got some healing effects, which means, he can stick around for a while, and, I really like that reaction. Anytime, so if you remove 2 damage from a unit, you still only get the 1 resource.
Correct.
But if you remove 1 damage each from 4 different units, you get 4 resources. So this guy can be making money almost, it seems to me, like at Kato speed or better. So
yeah,
I really like the resource generation. It's pretty cool.
Yep, there's no limit whatsoever. Unlike Captain Kato Sicarius, he doesn't have to be present at the planet, so wherever
Correct.
you're healing Necron army units, not non-Necrons, like he doesn't benefit nearly as much from enslaving factions as does Onrakir or Nahumek, but, you can still use some here and there, and relative to when we first saw him spoiled, it seems like Necrons, it's every other card has some sort of healing effect built into it. Last pack, we saw that Rumbling Tomb Stalker, which for the cost of 5 is a 1 command icon 2/7 drone elite, and after it assigns damage with an attack, you pull a point of damage from it. So every time it attacks, you're potentially removing damage from it, you're potentially gaining a resource. Because it's a Necron army unit and it's war gear eligible, you can even use effects like Royal Phylactery on that. Again, a 1 resource attachment, and that's every time a phase begins or a combat round begins, you remove 1 damage from the attached unit. So if you can force your units into situations where they take damage, so long as you can stop them from being killed, whether it's through shielding, whether it's through card effects like reanimation protocols, the amount of abuse that you can kind of leverage from that ability could potentially just be crazy.
Yeah, the Phylactery's good. The Canoptic Spider, which is basically once per combat round, you can discard a card to remove 2 damage from an army unit at that planet.
Right.
That seems pretty good. So there's all kinds of things, but it looks pretty cool.
Yeah, I think so. And just to keep, the theme of healing going on, we're even seeing plenty of different card effects for the Necrons where they've got their 1 deep strike event defensive protocols where you can reduce all incoming damage to 1, so that if some of your units are wounded and maybe you have to generate resources to pay for healing effects or something like that, you can kind of buy some time. There's mechanical enhancement, which we spoiled long ago, an event which gives an HP bonus. So especially like if you can give that Rumbling Tombstalker or other things just enough HP that they can survive like an initial blow or 2, strikes me as being similar to a forward barracks type situation where eventually you just create this unwinnable attrition scenario. And I mean, God, not only can you just crank out a victory slowly but surely, but, every time that your opponent lets you get a swing with that stalker, they're risking your gaining resources and, putting more and more crap out onto the table.
Yeah. What do we got next?
Well, I suppose next up we've got his signature army unit. It is Augmented Warriors. This is 4 copies. It's 2-cost army unit, 1 command icon, 2/4, so it more than passes the vanilla test. It's got bonus 2 HP. Its soldier trait and forced reaction is after this unit enters play, deal it 2 unpreventable damage. So this doesn't have any kind of beneficial ability, but it does afford you the opportunity to heal it early and perhaps often because it does have that big HP reservoir. So it just really gives you a chance to gain a little bit more income.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the greatest army unit, I don't think, signature army unit, but it's essentially a 2-cost, 1 command, 2/2, which is straight up vanilla. Now, coming in, if you're facing Dark Eldar, you're not going to like it because you're setting it up for a Clavex, but
sure,
this might not be the sexiest target for a Clavex either. So, yeah, I mean, it's a 2-cost, 1 command, 2/2 with the upside of potentially gaining some money off of it. So, seems fair.
Yeah, strikes me as respectable. I know at first, like the initial reaction to Szeras by me and many others, and I'm always kind of optimistic about new cards, but it just seemed like Szeras, and I think we had him revealed well before we knew the full contents of Legions of Death, was that he was just the objective worst warlord in the game, because I think at that point, Necrons had access to like 1 healing effect or maybe 2 healing effects that we were aware of, and it just looked like he was trash. So Augmented Warriors are probably quite a bit better than I initially thought that they were. And again, just given the damage mitigation effects, all the healing effects, all the HP boosting effects, I just think that a 4 HP 2-cost unit could be a total nightmare. But his signature attachment is the 1-cost Eldritch Lance. It's 3 shields, war gear, and weapon. Attached to your warlord, attached unit gets +1 attack, which brings Szeras to 2. And combat action is exhaust this attachment to remove 1 damage from a Necron unit at this planet. So it can target your warlord, but if that's the case, you don't gain the resource. Last time I checked, Szeras wants to be healing units.
Yeah, I mean, you don't get the resource like you say because he only gets money from healing army units. But
right.
in a pinch, you can heal him. I mean, you always look at these things, right? And is it better as a 3 shielder or to play it? Well, if you get it out early, it's going to pay for itself the moment it heals. It's going to pay for itself right then and there because you're going to make $1 back by healing something. And right. Yeah, it's not 3 shields, but over the course of 3 turns, you can, essentially it's a 3 shielder, kind of. So, yeah. Not a great card, but a very good card. +1 attack is nice, but bumps them up to a 2, like you say. So, yeah, I like this thing. Just a nice money generator. Again, get it out early and, pay for itself first turn, maybe, second turn, probably, and start making money after that.
Sure. It's a bit of a shame that it is like limit once per round just because it does have to exhaust, but
correct.
Yeah, the earlier you can play it, it's Conquest is a very close game sometimes, and it'll come down to just 1 or 2 points of damage. So if you've got consistent healing from, right out the gate, that can make a huge difference. But speaking of making a huge difference and radically changing the way that any game of Conquest is played, he's got a very interesting signature support. It's the 2-cost Dissection Chamber. It's a location trait, and forced reaction is after an army unit enters play, deal it 1 damage. So this affects you, it affects the opponent. Anytime someone puts into play or deploys an army unit, it takes 1 damage. So all of a sudden, Void Pirates, Rogue Traders have to be played alongside a shield card, otherwise they outright die. And the same thing goes for your beloved Splintered Path Acolytes, Incubus Warriors, and your Augmented Warriors interplay as a 2-1 unit.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully this benefits you more than them.
Right.
But, against like a command heavy deck, right, with these pirates and traders and, command cappers, you see them all the time. 10th Company Scouts, Vasha Trailblazers, like you say, Incubus Warrior. You can just, it's like, okay, you can play it, but you're going to have to waste another card just to do it. So I like it a lot because of that. I think you're going to be playing... I would assume you're going to be playing Lichguard Sentinel in Xeris, which means, sure, I'll take the damage, but you can't attack my guys. So it's not as bad if you have him out. And I absolutely love the art. It is gruesome.
Yeah, it's like some sort of like flayed open body on a table. And
yeah, you can't even tell like really what it used to be.
Yeah, it's just like some mammalian life form reduced to like a pile of intestines, and you can see a kidney and like the pancreas and all sorts of good stuff there.
Right.
But yeah. I definitely think that's a big game changer if played early. What I think is kind of funny is since we originally had, when Xeris was originally spoiled, everybody was like, oh my god, no one can ever play 1 HP units again. And now we're so moving in the direction of this elite heavy meta where it's like,
right.
What's 1 damage? I don't know. So I'll be curious to see if this ends up making a big difference or if this is kind of, who cares? But,
yeah. It'll be interesting.
Certainly.
It's enters play, not deploys. So, like,
yes.
Eager Recruit, boom, you need to use a shield to
right.
play him, kind of thing. So, pretty cool.
Yeah, and, I guess Deep Striking would count as entering play. I
believe that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but, that's an easy enough thing to check off podcast. And I suppose last but not least, we've got another, we have the one and only... 2 copies of the one and only signature event here for Xeris. This is Vivisection. 3 cost, 1 shield, tactic trait, action is target a planet. Remove 1 damage from each Necron unit you control at the targeted planet, and deal 1 damage to each non-Necron unit at the targeted planet. Note that it's the planet that's targeted, not the units. It basically heals all your Necrons for 1, and it deals 1 damage to all the non-Necrons. So it's possible that this 3-cost event, once you front the expense, you could make your money back, you could make more than that back. What do you think about it?
I really like it. People might think 3 cost is steep, but just like you said, I would think that in 90% of cases, you're going to make your money back on this
Sure.
thing. So it's like a free, or more than free, heal your guys and damage their guys. So I really like it. You can make a lot of money with this. And if someone says AoE 1 for free, I'd be like, yeah, no problem.
Yeah, this is one of those things that I've seen a few Xeris games. I've not played any myself, but it just seems as combat goes on and Xeris picks up an additional resource or another couple additional resources, it's like you kind of wait for him to reach a specific threshold where, just like Kato can suddenly maybe afford a drop pot assault, all of a sudden you have to worry about Vivisection. And then if Vivisection happens, maybe Xeris makes enough income where mechanical enhancement is suddenly going to be a thing where all of his units get plus to HP and stuff. So it's a nasty little effect. I've always been a fan of life leech in games where you do the vampiric touch type of thing. You siphon life away from the enemy, and that's very much what this card seems to be to me. So Cool stuff here, and I guess it's worth mentioning that it's an action as opposed to a combat action.
Yeah, no, it's cool. You can do it at any time, so pretty cool. You can set up some cool stuff here, like if they don't shield because they think, oh, it's just 1 damage, maybe you can play a few different Necron cards that reduce HP, and then now, like, oh, too bad you didn't shield earlier kind of thing. So, I like it. And, I mean, I like Szeras in general here. You put together here on the show notes a list of Necron cards that heal. I think there's 7 of them here. And then there's the 3 that come with him, his attachment and 2 events. So, I don't know if you'd include all, 3 copies of all 7, but if you did, you're looking at 24 cards. That's like half your deck has got healing capabilities. So you can really make some money here. I think it'll be interesting. Does this mean that you can, run lighter on shields or run lighter on command presence for resources because you're going to get this money back? Or does it mean you run those things like normal and you just have more money than normal? So kind of like the same thing with, like visual. Do you run less command for card draw or focus less on card draw because you'll get it anyway? Or do you just want more than normal and build a quote normal deck? So I think these are interesting questions that haven't necessarily been answered with visual and obviously haven't been answered yet with Szeras, but I'm really looking forward to trying him out. To me, he's the most interesting of the Necron Warlords yet.
Yeah, I would say so. Nahumek was a little bit of a dud in that he's kind of interesting conceptually, but the execution kind of results in a pretty weak warlord, and Onrakir is fascinating, but I think Szeras just has so much potential where it's like, ooh, wow, that reaction, if you let that go unchecked, that can pose a serious problem. Maybe my favorite combo with Szeras is just that Reanimating Warriors. It's a 3-cost 2/2 with a command icon, and if you dump those at the first planet, when they would be destroyed, you instead remove all damage and shift them to planet 2 or an adjacent planet once per phase. And because you're removing damage, they gain a resource, so that 3-cost unit that maybe you buy a couple of them on the first turn, if your opponent doesn't have any card effects to get rid of them, like rout them or kill them twice in one turn, that can be a huge source of income over a game. So a lot of cool stuff that this guy can do. Any weaknesses stand out to you?
Well, it'll be an interesting balance. I don't know if he's an elite. I don't know. I built a Szeras deck, and I have no clue if it's good. I haven't played it yet. I just built it the other night when I was on Conquest DB, and, I'm thinking, okay, I want the Lich Guard, because he's a perfect target, obviously to keep my other guys healthy and remove damage from him. Rumbling Tombstalker, our newest elite, he seems awesome. So it's like, okay, do I need to run an elite deck because I have these healing effects and the guys can stick around longer, which means it gives me more chance to heal them, and that goes well with Dissection Chamber because you don't want your one command cappers having to also yourself deploy a shield or spend a shield to keep them alive. So
sure.
I haven't quite figured it out yet, but I think healing is nice. But the only other card game I have extensive knowledge of is Invasion, and in that game, elves were, high elves, which are kind of like, the fantasy version of Eldar.
Yeah.
They were the healing faction, and it never really worked for them. So I hope in these next 2 packs we see a few more things so that every Szeras deck doesn't look the same. But it'll be interesting to see how he unfolds here as he gets played more.
Yeah, my only real, apart from Magic the Gathering in high school, my only experience with a lot of healing in card games is for the Lord of the Rings living card game. And healing in that is kind of like, if you're good enough, you'll never need it. But in Conquest, damage, goes back and forth all the time.
Sure. And with this, it's like a benefit. It's not just healing. Yeah. It's healing to get money, which is nice.
Sure.
So,
sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, the meta is in the direction of elites. I think Xeris works great with elites. So even if you're not, able to retire off of what Xeris earns for you, I think it's a pretty significant effect, and I'm just excited to see how Necron Warlord 3 ranks with the original two, just because kind of, it hurts me to say this, but just like our Tyranids, I think they're maybe a little bit underwhelming to start, and I just have high hopes for Xeris and the future of the Necrons.
Yeah.
But I guess why don't we go ahead and move on to the non-signature aspects of the pack, and Sam, introduce us to the Space Marines.
All right, we've got the 5-cost armor unit Deathwing Terminators. They are soldiers, dark angels, and elite traded. They are common. 2 command, 4/5. Deep strike cost of 3. So if you deep strike this guy, he's a 4-cost, let's call it no command 4/5. So that's pretty good. And he has the reaction, after you deep strike this unit, it cannot be targeted by enemy card effects until the end of the first combat round. I really like this. Now, you would not want to play this guy where he's like the only unit at the planet, because the combat round won't last long.
Yeah.
This is kind of one of those, I think, mid or late game cards. $4 is a little expensive, but look, you're getting a 4/5 that can't be touched by targeted by enemy card effects. So if you're going up against, say, Zera, your Flamers can't touch me, your, Plague Bearers can't touch me, your Firestorms can't touch me, that's pretty good. Your Klavex can't touch me, your Archon's Terror can't hit me. So I really like this. I keep saying you can't touch me. This is like the MC Hammer card. And since he's common, you can take him in TC Hammer if you want. But no, I like this. It's Dark Angel. It's good in visual. What do you think? I like it.
I think it's potentially cool. It's got the protection of an elite. It might spare you, let's say the first combat round you can't be Clavexed, and then the second combat round your opponent's like, finally, thank God, I can do something about this. And then you're like, well, backlash, So I think it's pretty interesting. Do you see, what comes to mind for me is comparing this to something like Fire Drake Terminators. Do you think that this is something that might take the place of that unit? Because, 1 damage is so much less useful against an elite meta?
I can see it. I've noticed in the visual games I've played, he lacks punching power. I actually don't run Drop Pod Assault in visual, and I've talked to some other people who agree that that's kind of the build to take with him. This guy hits for 1 extra. He's got 1 less HP. He's still a great unit, though, for the jump pack. Just the reaction is so strong. We all know that Backlash is a real deal. It's a card that sees play and that pays off for itself more than enough. And this thing's got built-in unlimited backlash for the entire first combat round. Now, the one question I have, enemy card effects. Well, I guess the first combat round, let's say you're playing Anshi, okay? Mm-hmm. And Anshi goes to Farron, and he plays Tense Negotiations, and he chooses to route this unit. Is that an enemy card effect? Because it's a card effect being triggered by the enemy? Or is that just a planet card effect and it is not an enemy card effect?
Well, I think immediately there are 2 different ways. You could say enemy card or enemy card effects.
Correct.
An enemy card, I would imagine, is a card controlled by your opponent. Let me see in the rules reference guide if there's a specific definition of enemy. So enemy is used to refer to game elements that your opponent controls. So I would say you don't ever control the planets.
Correct. So in this case, it's a corner case, but I actually had it come up in a game, not with this card, but with Land Raider. Mm-hmm. And the guy did trigger Farron. And I'm like, hey, you can't route him because my Land Raider's here. He's like, yeah, but this isn't an enemy card effect. I'm like, okay, you know what? You're right. And we played it out. So it seems like we played it the correct way. So other than that corner case, though, where someone's going to Tense Negotiation, a Farron, or Blood Rain Tempest onto Farron or something, this guy's got multiple potential built-in backlashes, and for $4 getting a 4/5 seems pretty strong to me. And he can ready up with the 8th Company deep striking in next turn, so good target for the jump pack. Hits pretty hard, harder than any unit I've currently running as far as base attack value and visuals. So I like him a lot.
Yeah, and if he hangs around, first of all, he's likely to survive, and should he do so, he's got 2 command icons. So, cool unit, and gorgeous artwork. I absolutely love the aesthetic of Terminators, and it's kind of a cool little Dark Angels variation thereof. He's got some nice wings, I guess, sprouting from his delts, and couple of cool Terminators in the background there with like a heavy chain gun and some lightning claws and all sorts of good stuff.
Yeah.
But what is our event, Sam?
This is the 2-cost common event, 1 shield, repent with an exclamation point. Tactic. Action. Each player exhausts a unit he controls with the highest printed cost among units he controls. Then each unit exhausted by this effect deals X damage, where X is its attack value, to the other player's unit exhausted by this effect. So basically, I've got a 5-cost unit out. You have a 5-cost unit out. I play this. We both exhaust our 5-cost units. We both deal damage to one another's 5-cost units equal to the attack value, not printed attack value. So if you have an ion rifle on your guy, great. So this is cool. I don't know how good it is. It's cool, but it's $2. You have to exhaust one of your own guys. I see this more as a defensive card than an offensive card. This is, my highest costed card is a 3, and I'm going to exhaust it to make you exhaust your Bloodletter or Possessed or, whatever it is.
Sure.
And, my guy will probably die because... maybe not, but my guy's going to take a hell of a lot of damage, if not die, and so will theirs. But Space Marine's base attack value is not huge. Like, this might be really good if you're running the core set Dreadnought, hit them for 8, and chances are, unless they've got a Possessed out, they're not killing your Dreadnought. So I think there's potential, but I think your deck kind of has to be tailored to this. Or if it's not, and you don't have elites, and all you've got out is 3 cost, again, I think it's a good defensive tactic.
Yeah, it just...
And there's no targeting either, so there's no backlash here.
Right. But just as there's no targeting, I think my major issue with this card is that there is no choice. Like, if you've got your Viorla Marksman alongside Anshi, and it's got 3 copies of gun drones attached to it, if I've got my big Sword Brethren Dreadnought, chances are that you've got something more expensive than your Viorla Marksman. So maybe I don't want to exhaust my biggest, most expensive unit. Maybe your problem unit isn't your most expensive one, so I think my major issue with this card is just the lack of control that it gives to its player. And even though you can use it as an action, like, man, 2 resources for a Space Marines event is awfully steep.
Yeah, but I think the fact that it's an action and not a combat action is really versatile. Like, with a lot of these elite decks, I see, you might see 1 army unit a turn or something, right? And so before they put out their second one, if they can, you exhaust the 1 unit they have. It can help you with command. If you haven't played your big guy yet and all you've got is a bunch of 2-cost units, you can choose which one is least effective. Yeah, you won't kill their elite, but you've kind of taken their elite out of the fight for the first combat round and command. So I don't know. I think it's pretty versatile, and I think it's one of these sneaky cards that might actually become better as it sees more play than it looks on paper.
Yeah, it totally could. Really, the only other complaint I can think of to level at this is it would kind of suck if their most expensive unit were sitting in their HQ, where it's going to end up being
Correct.
exhausted anyways.
And
But
the choice is among the players. So if my opponent has 2 5-cost units and I have 2 5-cost units, and 5 is each of our most expensive units in play, they get to choose, as do I get to choose. So, right, if they've got a possessed at Planet 1 and a bloodletter in their HQ, they can just exhaust that bloodletter. So,
yeah. So I'll be curious to see what exactly is done with this. It's neat that, something at Planet 5 could damage something at Planet number 1. But I guess I'm not blown away. I am not exactly cautiously optimistic, but I'm curious about this one.
yeah. Well, let's move on to Astra Militarum. What do we have here, Mitch?
All right, so we begin with the Engine Seer Mechanic. It is a 3-cost army unit, 1 command icon. It's a 1/6. It's common. It's a scholar, and reaction is after a vehicle unit you control at this planet is assigned damage, exhaust this unit to prevent up to 2 of that damage. So 6 HP on a 3-cost unit is pretty strong, and I don't know, Grigory Maxim likes vehicles. Steel Legion Chimera could be protected by the Engine Seer mechanic, and it could protect the mechanic. I guess maybe if you're playing this in war, it can still attack as a 2/6 for 3, but how viable do you think this guy is?
I'm really torn on this guy. 3 costs for 1 attack is not great for a 1 attack that's never going to attack. So it's like a 3-cost damage sponge. Now, if they need to get rid of this thing and they're spending their time attacking an exhausted 6 HP unit, that's pretty good. Mm-hmm. Also, it turns support cards when they're attacking Maxim Signature Army unit into 5 shielders, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Essentially, you get. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I've got to say the first, up until just now, I totally missed the fact that you have to exhaust this unit. So I've definitely got to say I'm less of a fan of it than I was.
Yeah, but again, okay, attack my exhausted unit, have fun with that, while he sits there with 6 HP. He's common. He can take the jump back if you're, in Space Marines or running Space Marine allies. And it's going to be, it's only 2 damage per combat round. But I'm trying to talk myself into this guy because Maxim can, really keep stuff alive with all his shielding. And this just augments that. So I don't know how I like it. I'm going to have to play with it to really see it, but I'm going to try to talk myself into this. Maybe I have a bias because I want more Mechanicum cards in the card pool, but I see potential here. All right, hit me for 4. I'll spend my second copy of STC that's in my hand doing nothing as a shield. It's a tank. It becomes a 2 shield. I have this guy. I've now prevented 2 damage, so your 4 attack just went to nothing. So, I don't know. 3 costs a little expensive, I think, but I'm trying to like this guy.
Yeah, I don't know. Generally, I'm used to Travis McDaniel designing the decks that I've played in the Black Crusade, so I don't know what Travis's opinion is of this card. I'll have to shoot him a message or something sometime, but I guess I'm just not too impressed as a player who isn't really looking to run Maxim, but I definitely think there's potential. It's just a bit of a bummer that there's no Scholar synergy whatsoever.
Correct.
Kind of like the Engine Seer Augur. He's got a significant effect, but whether or not he's as good as people want him to be, I just don't know. But the nice thing about these initial impressions are, they're certainly open to being revised with time. What I do like is our next army unit. This is the Griffin Escort. It's an army unit with a cost of 4. It's loyal, 1 command, 2/4, vehicle and tank, no war gear attachments, and reaction is after this unit enters play, put 2 guardsman tokens into play at this planet. And what I like about this is, as we've seen the rise of Kugoth Plaguefather to power, he runs the Prince's Might, which basically neuters my old war deck, where almost every unit was 2 or lower cost army unit. This puts guardsman tokens into play, which get around that effect because they're tokens, they're not army units, and then this itself is a 4 cost unit, so that also gets around it. And with war, you're paying 4 for a 3/4 and 2 2/2s.
Yeah, I mean, this seems good in war. It's essentially a 4 cost, 1 command, 9/8. Who doesn't like that?
Right.
You know what I mean? And even in Maxim, it's a 4 cost, 1 command, 4/8. So, wait, did I do that math right? 1, 2, 3. No, I'm sorry. In war, it's a 7/8.
Sure.
And then in Maxim, it's a 4/8. So, I like this thing. And there's a lot of... Now, sure, they could warp storm right now. If you have no shields, your guardsmen are dead, and this thing's got 2 damage. But there's a lot of cards that don't take care of token units. Like if an army unit attacks you, X happens, or deal X damage to an army unit, or all army units, whatever. So just more tokens spawning. There's a lot of cards out there that don't remove or take care of these token build-up problems, and I like it in Maxim and War.
Yeah, I mean, War especially does the attrition thing. Even though this is the equivalent of like a 7/8, it's 3 units that you have to deal with. It's not just 1 that you can use an Archon's Terror against. And, God forbid if you've got forward barracks out, that's 3 units you have to get rid of before that grind fest activates.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty cool card. I don't think it's broken. It's not...
No.
But, it is kind of a built-in troop transport, or better, I guess, because it doesn't have to be at a green planet. But awesome card. Really good for anybody with Strachan. Those are 2 soldiers. And with Kotiaz, it certainly gives him a shitload of units to sacrifice. Mm-hmm. So, very cool stuff. But I guess to round out the AM cards, we've got an attachment that we've seen spoiled before. It's the 1 cost Hot Shot Laze Pistol. 1 shield, weapon, war gear. Attached to an army unit you control. Attached unit gets +2 attack. Damage cannot be removed from units at the same planet as attached unit. So I talked about Kugoth being less powerful against war, or AM. All of a sudden, Fetid Haze doesn't remove damage. Szeras isn't going to be able to remove damage from units. But this really strikes me as a meta call.
Yeah, it's absolutely a meta call. And just to verify, does move fall under removed?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I just wanted to check, because, Kugath can still move damage. Brutal Cunning can still move damage. I don't think move is the same as removed.
Yeah, I don't think so.
So, but you're right. Fetid Haze obviously can't work. So against Kugath and Szeras, this is an auto include. So it just depends on how much Kugath and Szeras you go up against.
Yeah. The only other similar option is the M35 Galaxy Las Gun. It's the same cost. It's +1 HP, +1 attack. So do you want the additional attack? Do you want the HP? That one returns to hand. This one doesn't. But yeah, I mean, if we start seeing healing being really prominent, who knows? So I would say right off the bat, I'm unlikely to include that in a deck, but maybe eventually.
Yeah, but I mean, it is a 1 cost for +2 attack, which is good. I mean, and you can take this thing in Starblaze, so slap this and an ion rifle on someone, and for $2 you got +5 attack. So, pretty good.
Yeah, it's definitely not bad. But, Sam, I guess you're the less refined between the two of us. Why don't you run us through the orc cards?
All right, we got the 3 cost common army unit, Blood Axe Strategist. 2 command, 2/4. So for $3, that seems great to me on its own.
Sure.
Soldier trait, and then it has the reaction. After an orc unit you control at this planet resolves an attack, move it to an adjacent planet or your HQ. Wow. Yeah, it's not forced, and it's only orc units, but this thing seems strong. I mean, if they've got a Bealtan Guardian sitting at Planet 1, because that used to be Planet 4 at the start of the game, and you've got an elite there and maybe a Snakebite Thug and something else, and it's obvious they're not going there and they're not going to deploy any units there, then, go ahead and smack the Bealtan with your big guy and then just move him over, and leave your Blood Axe Strategist and your, whatever else you got there to claim the battle victory and trigger the battle ability. And now you've got, your potential elite or big hitter at the next planet. I don't know why you'd ever really want to move it to your HQ. That's the one thing I'm trying to figure out. I guess... I guess maybe... Like if... I was thinking if they're going to start ambushing stuff in and you want to keep it healthy and you think you can win even without it, but if they're ambushing stuff in, do you want to be removing units from the battle? I don't know. To me, I would always move this to the adjacent planet, I would think, just at first blush.
I think what I would do is you could attack with your Warlord one last time and then move your Warlord to your HQ if you're worried about them maybe getting bloodied at the next planet.
Okay, now that's good. I didn't think about the Warlord, so that's a good call.
And then, speaking of warlords, just like An-Shi can do, and the Karu Arameus doesn't work. But anyways, just like An-Shi, you can trigger multiple battles per turn because all of a sudden Nosdrag goes from planet 2 to planet number 3. Yeah. So that's cool.
I wasn't thinking about the Warlord. That's a great call. If you have two of these, if you have one at Planet 1 and one at Planet 2.
Yeah, do a little conga line.
Yeah, you can, a little conga line with Nosdrag or whoever, so.
Yeah, so cool. Really cool stuff here. I especially like that this guy's, I don't like that he's only a 2/4, but he's only a 2/4, but it's after each of your orc units attacks, so it's not like this guy has to be doing the attacking and then you can move an orc unit. It's subject to none of the awkward timing that so many other cards are. So statistically, it's great, and that ability just seems absolutely rock solid.
Yeah, I mean, I think just 3 costs for a 2-command 2/4 seems good to me. Anyway, outside of the reaction. So I'm looking forward to playing this guy. But next up, we have the other orc card, also common. 1-cost support, Iden Base. It is a location. It looks like a funky, moldy treehouse, and it has the text, each card you control in reserve is treated as a 2-attack, 2 HP orc army unit during the combat phase. It's cool. I kind of hate to say this, but not for me, because I'm not a dirty cheater, but I can see how this card would encourage cheating. Yes, when a card dies, it goes face up in the discard pile. And yes, your opponent could say, hey, that's not even a Deep Strike card. How did you put it into reserve? But there could be times that's not caught. And, I don't know. I kind of don't like that. And I don't know what, okay, you're going to take, here's the cards we've got, all right? Noise Marines, Warband, Cetherial the Invocator, Scion Strike Force. Next pack we'll have that Repulsor Minefield. So there's not a ton of things that this will target yet. Yeah, but
your options are bad.
If we get to that point, yes, you have to pay $1 to put it out. And it is a location. And the moment it's blown up, its reaction goes away. So let's say you have this out and you put 3 cards in reserve, and now you've spent $3 for 3 2/2s. That seems good until Squig Bombing comes out in the command phase, and now you have nothing. And you are relying on those cards not to be deep struck, but to act as units. So there's upside to it, but it's kind of situational also, I think.
What I do think is interesting about this card, and it's very much contingent upon what other deep strike crap we see, because at the moment the options aren't good for orcs. But you could do something like teleport a pad during combat phase to move an in-reserve card from a non-first planet to the first planet, and then when battle begins, you could deep strike that card. Mm-hmm. So it gives you access to some weird shenanigans like that. You could also use custom field generator and some other things like that. But because they count as army units, if those cards in reserve are destroyed, they're just discarded as a normal army unit is. So right. I guess if you're really strapped for cash, you can use this as like a backup, but it just seems like this is a fascinating card that is a plant for being viable much, much later.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think that sums it up. So let's move on to Chaos.
Yeah. Well, so one of those deep strike cards that you could use, actually you couldn't use it in an Orc deck, my bad. It's loyal. This is Noise Marines Warband. So we've moved on to Chaos. This is a 4-cost army unit, 1 command icon, 2/3, Soldier, Slanesh. Deep strike is 2, so put it in reserve for 1, then deep strike it for 2 for a modified cost of 3. You're saving 1 resource. Pretty simple, area effect 1. So it's a somewhat harder hitting equivalent area effect Tac Squad Cardenas, but for Chaos, but it's more expensive.
You're not getting the command.
Right.
If you deep strike it. I don't love this card. In Zerathur, this is good. In Zerathur, it's a 3-cost AoE 2. Mm-hmm. With no command. How often do you see Calbite Strike Force, which is 2-cost, 1 command, 2-cost, 1 AoE, no command? It's like, I don't know. To me, this isn't viable. It's got great artwork, but
granted, Zerathur generally does ally with Orcs, but I mean that was the same comment I was going to make. Calbite Strike Force is not so. I don't know. It's just like this is a unit, so it's less. It doesn't affect you the way that Warp Storm does, but, oh man, I don't know about this one. It's cool if it works.
It's fine. It's fine. That's all I kind of have to say about it.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't knock someone for playing this, but I don't know if I'm going to be playing it.
Sure, and it's not, like, you can't use Infernal Gateway to put it into play because it costs 4.
Right.
So, I don't know. It's fine.
Yeah. Speaking of cards that are fine, let's take us on to our next one here.
Yeah, so Ominous Wind, 2-cost event, 1 shield, power, and Nurgle. This one is common. Action is draw X cards. X is the highest printed cost among units you control. Sounds good. But then you discard 4 cards from your hand. So fortunately, you get to pick which cards you're discarding, but there could be plenty of situations where you don't have, like, if you've got a 5-cost unit in play, you are paying 2 resources to gain 1 card, but this also costs a card. 6, you're getting 2 cards for 2 resources, and Black Legion Helldrake is 4 cards drawn for 2 resources, and Frenzied Bloodthirster is a net 6 cards for 2 resources. Varun, the UK national champion 2 years in a row, he did have the audacity to run a single copy of Frenzied Bloodthirster in his championship deck, and he does run Helldrakes, but this just seems like a card that you're going to draw, and you're not often really going to benefit from it.
Yeah, I mean, you got to have some big boys out. Like, the net is important to remember. Like, even with a Helldrake, you're only netting 4. However, you could already have cards in your hand that are going to be useless. Like, okay, it's turn 5 or turn 4. I don't need Void Pirates at this point, or I don't need, whatever. I don't need the Prince's Might. Well, I don't know why you want to need that, but you know what I mean. Whatever. Like, you're going to have cards that as the game progresses, you're like, okay, you know what? I really don't need this card right now. And so you can discard maybe a couple from the cards you already had before you played this. But But yeah, unless you run Helldrake or Frenzied Bloodthirster, I don't know if this is worth it. I could see it maybe in Orks, like a Nazdrag Elite deck. But like 2 cost for maybe a net of 3 or 4 cards, where it's like Primal Howl's 0 for 3 cards, and it's 2 shields.
Right.
I like the name. I like the art. It's kind of cool, but I don't know if I'll be running this thing or not. I'll have to maybe test it out.
Yeah, and I will look forward to hearing how it works out for you, I guess. Yeah. I don't know. I've not ever played a Chaos deck, so it seems like one of those, it's sufficiently high enough risk so as to deter me from running it. It's almost like a win more card in a sense, because you have to be doing pretty well for you to be doing even better. Drawing cards is always good. Extra shields, extra ridiculous events like Zinch's Firestorm and whatnot. But I'm not quite sold on it. And I guess, speaking of not quite sold on it, Sam, we've got some Dark Eldar cards to cover.
Yeah. Okay. 3-cost army unit, Masked Hunter. He is common. 1 command, 2/3, warrior and beastmaster traits. Reaction. After you declare this unit as an attacker, move a Chimera token from an adjacent planet to this planet. No thanks. Like, he has to attack first. You're paying 3 for a 2-attack guy. And then it's going to be their turn to swing, and you've moved a Chimera over, like, hey, hit me in the face, please. I'm a 1 HP token. Maybe you got some other unit that's ready that they need to deal with. However, I would just, if that unit exists, I would think I would rather attack with it than a 2-attack, Masked Hunter. So, I don't know. If you can get Chimera tokens in a deck in Farrenhall, maybe this thing's good. But outside of that, this thing does not strike me as good.
It does hit me as kind of a weird situation where your opponent would set them, like, okay, ideally he's the last one to attack and all of your opponent's crap is already exhausted, but then whose opponent would be so foolish as to, like, I'm gonna arrange myself to be in this situation where they can attack once and they can pull over a unit and they can attack again and again. Right. I don't know. But, Sam, how about this one? You're playing against Packmaster Kith, and you pull her Chimera tokens from an adjacent planet to your planet. Like, sure. I don't know. Anyways, okay. Not impressed with this guy.
No, me neither.
Yeah.
Speaking of not impressed, let's move to the event. This is a nil cost. You can only deep strike this thing. It is Rundown. It is common. It is 1 shield, and it is a tactic. It's got the deep strike cost of 0, so you're paying 1 for this to put it in reserve. Reaction. After you deep strike this event, target a non-elite army unit in your opponent's HQ. Move the targeted unit to this planet. No way, man. This thing is too situational. There's going to be... Like, this is only good if you've given them the first planet and you're battling at a later planet, and they will have, that's the only way they're really probably going to have a unit in their HQ, is if they want to battle earlier in the round.
Yeah.
And now you pull it to this planet, and okay, in and of itself that's good, right? Like, pull that thing. If it's exhausted, fine. If it's not exhausted, now you got to deal with it, like, attacking you. If it's exhausted, then yeah, maybe you can beat the shit out of it, and now it's stuck at this planet where they didn't want it, but it's just, in my opinion, way too situational.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I mean, the army unit that you target can't be an elite, and what if it just so happens that your opponent, like their last attack, they run out of combat turns, so then you're moving like a readied unit to that planet? Correct. And granted, maybe you get to attack it, but then maybe they're going to shield against it. I'm just not a fan, and out of all the Dark Eldar warlords we've seen thus far, I don't think anybody's clamoring to run that new, like, Corrupted Clawed Fiend that has, like, a reasonable bit of attack power associated with it, so Dark Eldar is not hitting hard. Really, the only good thing I can think of to say about this card is that The Rundown is my favorite movie featuring The Rock, so, I don't know. Not a big fan.
All right, let's move on to something better, Mitch. Take us into what's one of the more interesting cards in this pack here for Eldar.
All right, so Eldar, we've got a 5-cost elite army unit in the Shrieking Exarch. This is common, 2 command icons. It's a 4/6 warrior and elite. As an additional cost to deploy this card, discard 2 cards from your hand. Reaction is after an army unit is destroyed at this planet, draw 1 card and deal 1 damage to a target enemy unit. So, this is a warrior, and with Taliesin alongside a Psyker, it is a 5/7 with a couple command icons for 5. It's got the protection of an elite, but when it enters play, you pick what cards you want to get rid of. Maybe there are extra copies of uniques, but whenever an army unit is destroyed, whether it's yours or your enemy's, you're drawing additional cards and you're damaging, it could be Chimera tokens.
Yeah, I really like this. I mean, 5 costs for 2 command 4/6 is pretty much good on its own in my book.
Right.
With Farrenhall, this is big. This is like an auto include for her. Yes, you have to discard 2 cards, but like, look, Eldar do fine in command. You're gonna have 2 cards that you're like, yeah, I don't need these, or you only have to have 1 card you don't need and 1 card that you can gift back in.
Yeah.
And after the army unit is destroyed at this planet, so she doesn't have to be destroying it, this warrior Exarch, or whatever she's called, Exalted Exarch, or Shrieking Exarch, whatever, if I scroll up and read the damn card here. But, it's like anytime an army unit is destroyed, it's your army units, it's their army units, and you can draw a card, so you're going to be getting those cards that you had to discard back, like net, pretty quick. And it's deal 1 damage to a target enemy unit. It can be a warlord. Like, if you're at a planet and they run away, or they're there, like if their enemy warlord is there, it's probably going to be taking a little bit of damage, or at least they're going to be, it's going to be attacked, maybe, probably. Mm-hmm. And if it runs away and goes somewhere else, if you lose a few units and they lose a few units, it's like a damage to your warlord, a damage to your warlord, and there's nothing to protect. Like, if you try to hit. I would never hit an elite with this reaction because if they backlash it, you've just lost this card.
Yeah.
But to me, this just screams kill their command units, ping their hardy non-elite units, and most importantly, just ping their warlord. This thing is, in my opinion, probably the best card in the pack. It seems really cool, and it makes me want to play Farrenhall more.
Very cool stuff. It's like, go ahead, Zarather, play Warp Storm. If you Gift of Isha this back into play, you're not deploying it, so you don't have to discard additional cards. But Correct. It seems like worst case scenario is your opponent is attacking into this 6 or 7 HP unit, which is incredibly hardy, swinging for 4 or 5 with Taliesin. It seems like it's probably going to be killing at least 1 army unit, and it's already passing the vanilla test as a 2 command icon 4/6, and if you're drawing additional cards, even though you've got to get some crap out of your hands. Like last time I checked, Eldar do great in regard to drawing cards, generating resources. So, it's not like it's hurting you. And sometimes you can get some ideal stuff at the top of your discard. So I don't see anything not to like about the Shrieking Exarch here.
Yeah, man, this seems like a great card. Probably, like I say, this is the most interesting one to me in the whole pack. So, Looking forward to this.
Very cool stuff. Excited to see it in play. And I guess second for Eldar here, we've got an attachment, 0 cost, 1 shield icon. It is the Ulthwé Spirit Stone. War gear and Ulthwé traits. It's common, attached to an Eldar faction army unit you control. I'm having flashbacks to Guardian Mesh armor here. Interrupt is when attached unit would be destroyed, return it to your hand instead. So, what do you think?
I think it's better than Guardian Mesh armor.
Fair. That's fair.
It's 0 cost. This is nice if you don't have the gift, right? If you don't have gift, and you're like, this is good to put on to me, the best target for this is Warlock Destructor. It's like, I'm going to have to pay $1 to keep this thing alive in my HQ at the start of the next turn. Even if he survives, well, you know what? Now if he dies, I can let him die because now I can just spend an extra $1 to put him wherever I want, ready to roll. So,
sure.
It's not an auto include, but I see a spot for it. It's a nice option when you don't have Gift of Isha and maybe you're a little lower on units, or you want that particular unit to to come back. So yeah, it seems good.
I take this as a sign that we're going to be seeing more units with Win enters play type effects. Like currently there's only the Swordwind Farseer, where you can look at the top 6 cards of your deck, add one of those cards to your hand, and there's a Mighty Wraith Knight where it exhausts all enemy units. But I see that being able to bounce crap back to your hand, just like with Craft World Gate, it's probably going to be some eventual deck that we're going to see. Even Jane Czar coming out, her like Banshee Assault Squad or whatever they're called, if you can put those into play whenever you cancel a targeted ability, and then maybe they hang around long enough for you to drop a Spirit Stone on them, they get killed, and then you drop them back into play at a different planet. There's just some interesting stuff that this enables.
Yeah, I think it's good with Jane Czar's signature army unit. As you just said, that's a good point. Also, it could be good if you're running Concealing Darkness, which is that Eldar Deep Strike card that lets you ambush stuff in during combat.
That's what I was thinking.
Now, you got to have some money to do all that. But, it's like, maybe you don't have quite the cards you wanted to ambush in. Well, when this guy dies, you ambush him back in. So, and it costs you nothing other than a card. So, like I say, it's not ultra sexy, but it seems like a good card.
Yeah, so it would be disappointing to draw this, but it's in the context of the Eldar drawing a shitload of cards compared to the competition, so it could be fine. I'm not blown away by it, but it's got a place.
Yeah.
But let's move on to Tau.
Yeah. All right, first up we've got the next installment in the Elite Groupies here. This is the 2-cost common army unit, Herald of the Tau Va. It's got a 1 command, 1/3, as these things typically go. Soldier and ethereal traits. Like all ethereals, it has the forced reaction after this unit resolves its attack move to your HQ. And it has each elite unit that you control at this planet gains mobile. This is an interesting card to me. It does not strike me as the most powerful of the elite groupies. To me, that still goes to what we got in the last pack, the Tech Marine and the Disciple of Excess. But its forced reaction isn't really a problem because mobile happens before attacking happens. So it's like your elite units have benefited from this, and can move away before anything attacks. So this is kind of like maybe you had some elites at a planet and you need to get them somewhere else. Just plop this guy down for 2, and now you've got a bunch of elites that are kind of like Wild Rider squadrons or something. Or, I guess not that good, but all your elites become crisis battle suits or something. So, I don't know. At first blush, like on paper, this guy doesn't look ultra strong, but I'm a decent enough Conquest player to know that movement abilities are huge. So, I'm going to be interested to see what people can do with this guy.
Yeah, I think maybe the best case use scenario for me is maybe you've got planet number 1 set up with your, Viorlaw marksman with gun drones. Anshi is maybe there. It's ready to do its Armorbane ranged area effect, just game-winning volley, and, crap, I guess this is each elite unit. So,
yeah, it's each elite.
Yeah,
but if you have
the broadside.
If you have your, broadside.
Yeah,
exactly.
So you've got your broadside set up. Maybe it's just on initiative, and then your opponent, of course, doesn't show up to get blown to pieces, and then you win that planet, and because you've got the information of knowing that the enemy isn't sending their warlord there to contest you, you just shift all that garbage 1 down the line, but then the Herald of the Tau Va gets swept into your HQ, but it doesn't matter if you just keep sending your warlord and it to a relevant planet. So, I don't know, it's kind of weird, but like you said, movement is strong, and, weird stuff wins games.
Yeah, the one thing I'd be worried about is there's enough ambush and direct burn effects in this game to all right, I'll just move these guys over here because you're not coming, and then all of a sudden you lose Planet 1 because they, burn some shit or ambush some shit in, and now you have a fight on your hands that you weren't expecting. But that's kind of a meta call too. Yeah. So I think this guy has big potential, but he's not a slam dunker.
Yeah, it could also fall prey to, just like somebody might use Tense Negotiations in Farron, or now the Sword Brethren Dreadnought in Farron to remove like a gleeful plague beast from a planet before it can wreak havoc. I could see that kind of thing being like, surprise, your herald is gone, surprise, your elites are kind of stuck where you probably don't want them. So this, yeah, it's interesting. It's by no means like, a slam dunk. So I am curious to see what people do with it.
Yeah, I was thinking there might be a way, like if someone, Farron or Inquisitorial Fortress this guy away, you could bring him back with Cloud City,
right.
But that's a combat action, so that will not work either. So, yeah, this guy's kind of, I don't know if situational is the right word, but he could do nothing at all, or he's got big upside, and I don't know if that's always worth it. So we'll see.
Yeah, probably not my style of play, but to each their own. And I guess what's up next?
All right, next we've got the third Space Marine card in this pack. This is the 1-cost Tau support common unique beleaguered garrison location. Each card you control in reserve is counted as a command icon at its planet when resolving command struggles. I guess they made this a Tau card because they didn't want Astra Militarum to have access to it, because this just screams visual to me.
Yeah, right.
It's no secret that Visual can struggle in command because all of his shit is face down in reserve. And if you give all those cards a command icon, that is huge. So location stinks because this is like the most vulnerable of supports with both support hate and location hate, but potentially very strong card.
Yeah, it seems pretty good. It seems kind of exactly what Visual needs, so it fills a specific role for the Tau. I guess, what did the Tau have? The Tau have that tactical withdrawal where you can move any number of units at a planet to an adjacent planet, and that's a good card, but it's really only one thing. And then the Eldar at the opposite end of the Alliance spectrum, they've got Concealing Darkness, which lets you ambush stuff, and then they've also got the Hidden Strike Chainsword, which increases attack against non-warlord units, but when it comes down to it at the present moment, yeah, this just screams Visual, and I don't really think there's any reason for anyone else to run this. Visual's got his signature units that are Deep Strike, he's got 8th Company Assault Squad, his Jump Pack, and I'm sure there are more and more cards to come, so it was already kind of looking like he was incentivized to ally with Tau, and this is now all the more reason for him to.
Yeah, I don't think you ever take Visual with Astra Militarum as long as this card kind of remains unless Astra Militarum comes out with some other type of thing that benefits deep striking cards to the effect that this does. I just see Visual going with Tau because this is that strong of a card.
Yeah, absolutely great stuff. But I suppose since you had the honor of doing our Tyranids spoilers earlier, why don't I do our Tyranids faction not spoilers, but just cards for War Pack 4 here. We've got 2 cards. The first is an army unit with absolutely gorgeous art. This is one of the newer tabletop models, I believe. This is Mucolid Spores. It's a 3-cost, 1 command icon, no attack, 2 hit points. Oh, I guess I should specify 0 attack, not no attack. Creature trait, flying, and mobile keywords, and interrupt. When this unit is destroyed, destroy up to 2 target enemy support cards. So the trick here is it has to die, but you can use mobile to ensure that it shows up opposite an enemy warlord. It's a little bit tricky to kill because it's flying, and it can't actually deal any damage, but you can blow up 2 support cards of your choice. I guess, Sam, thoughts?
This is an interesting card. I'm I mean, 3 cost for a 1 command 0/2 with flying. So let's call it a 0/3. And mobile, that's pretty wretched. However, this is very interesting in that, in its interrupt. You know, you're basically saying, if you don't want to lose those 2 supports, then I have to win this battle ability.
Yeah.
You're going to run away with your warlord. You're going to attack with your warlord and hit me for 1, because in most cases warlords are hitting for 2 or less, and this thing has flying. So it's like, okay, run away or don't kill me and then run away, and yeah, you save your supports, but I win the battle, which can be beneficial. It can also be not that big of a deal if it's something you don't want to trigger. But I really like this in Subject Omega, ambushing in a Ymgarl factor. Their warlord swings, he's thinking, okay, I'll swing for 1, or 2, that becomes 1. I'll damage it, and then I'll just run away because I don't want to lose these supports, or, whatever. And then you ambush in the Ymgarl factor, you smack the shit out of them.
Right.
And if this thing already has, if it somehow acquires another damage and the phase is over, then it dies anyway, so now you've, hit him for a lot and you get its benefit. So that could be interesting. 3 cost is a lot, but it's 3 cost with a command that lets you blow up, 2 Squig Bombings is $4 with no command. So, and I think with Omega you can trick the warlord into getting his ass kicked at an infested planet. So, I don't love it, but I can definitely see use for it.
Yeah, it's again a little bit of a meta call. If you can't blow up 2 supports, then it's a suboptimal card, but you are getting at least some use out of it in the meantime. There's some cool little tricks that you can do. So it's interesting. It's a bit of a shame that it's when this unit is destroyed as opposed to when it leaves play, so you can't use sudden adaptation to bounce it to your hand and blow up supports as it leaves. But yeah, it's interesting stuff. It's very telegraphed. It's easy to predict. But if supports, I don't know, in this elite meta, everybody is running STC Fragment. A lot of people are running Saloom Enclave and things like that, cost reducers. We just covered a new thing for visuals, so there's lots of stuff worth destroying. So it's an interesting option for Tyranids, and again, with so many of these cards, it's just Conquest is changing so quickly, so rapidly, because we're seeing so many of these packs in very rapid succession. I kind of feel bad for saying I'm just curious to see what this one does, but our meta is changing so quickly, I just don't really know quite what to make of this one.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what it does.
Yeah.
It seems like its upfront cost is a little steep, but it's kind of all right, either lose 2 supports or I win this battle. So I kind of like that.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
And a lot of people used to say that, Clogged with Corpses was what made the Swarm Lord viable relative to Old One Eye. So a lot of potential here, but whether or not it'll ever be realized, I'm not convinced one way or the other.
Yeah.
But our last card of the pack and our second final Tyranid card is Burst Forth. This is another nil-cost event. 1 shield, tactic trait. Deep Strike is 0. So you put it in reserve for 1, and then you Deep Strike it for free. Reaction. After you Deep Strike this event, commit either your Warlord or a Synapse unit you control to this planet. So what's interesting is you could say, you can only Deep Strike this when a battle begins, but you could move your, if you had a battle at planet number 1, and then you had a battle courtesy of Savage Warrior Prime at planet number 2. Actually, I kind of lost track of what I was going to say, but it seems like you could maybe use this to, not elicit multiple battles. I don't know. Save me here, Sam. What do you think of this card?
Well, I kind of like it. It only costs you $1, and because Tyranids have now more than one option for Deep Strike, they don't know exactly that it's going to be this burst forth. If I remember correctly, the battle begins, and then you check for initiative, correct?
I think so.
Because, like, I was thinking, if you have some army units at 1, and they go, and it's your initiative, and you send your warlord elsewhere to win command, then you can bring him back to 1 with this thing, and now you have initiative.
Yeah, it's
Whereas, like, maybe like they were planning, like, okay, he's not coming here with his warlord,
Sure.
I can steal initiative kind of thing for the battle. So
It is battle initiates, and then you determine initiative, and then you do ranged.
okay, so yeah, so this thing will go off. I guess there's some synergy here with, like, the Venom Throat Polluter. Like, you can, like, move a unit from a planet with your warlord to the planet with the Venom Throat.
Yeah.
And then, like, you can do all kinds of shenanigans there, because then it's like, all right, now you can move your warlord here, and, like, you have both of them there, or you could, I don't know.
So, like,
I'm kind of like you
like,
now. Now I'm talking in circles.
Yeah,
but...
well, Varun specifically didn't bring Old One Eye and Venom Throat Polluter to Worlds last year because it would have been a little bit of a headache to walk through all the movement. But with this event, you could do your Warlord goes to one planet, Venom Throat Polluter goes to another planet. You pull a non-Warlord from your Warlord's planet to the same planet as the Venom Throat Polluter, and then if you use Burst Forth, you could move your Venom Throat Polluter to the Burst Forth planet and pull another unit from your Warlord's planet. Or you could commit your Warlord to a second planet, and if you're running the Swarm Lord, then you would generate additional tokens. If you're Old One Eye, you could set yourself up to do, like, Ferocious Strength on your Warlord or your Synapse unit. I don't necessarily see this being like a Subject Omega card.
No.
But
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think it's Subject Omega, but there just seems to be a lot of interesting potential. Now, if I'm correct, this does not get around the whole, like, Savage Warrior Prime can't commit to the same planet as your Warlord. Because it's still committing.
Yeah, right.
So it can't get around that. But I don't know. Pretty cool card, I think. It's so, like, weird and different than anything we've seen, like committing cards based off Deep Strike, that I really don't have much of a concept for it, as is apparent by my rambling.
Yeah.
But I can see the potential for it, for sure.
It seems to me like you can use this as, you can, like, it facilitates risk-taking behavior, and then it provides a little bit of insurance in my mind. Like, if you take a risk and it doesn't pay off, you can be like, oh, okay, shit, well, thank goodness I had Burst Forth out, and now I can get my Warlord to that planet, and, or maybe it's just sufficient deterrent where your opponent's like, well, okay, I don't really want to go to that planet because just in case that happens to be Burst Forth, he's got initiative, he's got a Yumgarl Gene Stealer, and he can attack me for 6 or something. Right. So it is an interesting card. It is very complicated, and I almost feel like that's going to push players away from using it, just like the Venom Throat Polluter is good, but it's just, like, mentally exhausting, and over the course of a tournament, that just seems like it opens up players to get ambushed in a really bad way, like, surprise, I've got 2 elites at this planet or something, and it also sets up a player for, like, oh shit, you know, I misplayed my Burst Forth or something like that, so it just seems like a very mentally taxing card.
Yes, I would agree.
Yeah. But I guess this is the end, Sam. We've covered Warpack 4. We've searched for truth. I don't know if we've managed to find it. But what are your overall impressions of our latest Warpack?
I think it's a good pack. I don't think it's, like, the best pack that we've ever seen, but I said I really like Szeras. I really think that I think Visual benefited from this pack with the Deathwing Terminators and the Beleaguered Garrison out of Tau. Now, Not sure about a couple of these Astra Militarum cards, but I do like the Griffin Escort in War and Maxim. The Blood Axe strategist seems great for both Orc and Chaos. Hell, maybe even Astra Militarum if you're aligned with Orc 2. Chaos kind of got the short... Well, I was going to say Chaos got the short end of the stick, but then I scrolled down to the Dark Eldar, and I think they really got the short end of the stick. But I do think that if you're a Farrenhall player, or even if you're not, pick this up for Shrieking Exarch. That card seems bonkers to me. Tau, again, Beleaguered Garrison's just a visual card to me. But Herald of the Tau could be interesting, as we've talked about with the movement. And Tyranids they're not like slam dunk cards, but they're both like interesting and, as you said, kind of mentally taxing cards. So I think the first one, this Spores, could be mentally taxing for your opponent. So yeah, I think it's a pretty good pack overall, and I'm excited to play with some of these cards.
Yeah, well, I'm really looking forward to seeing more Xeris games. Hopefully they don't turn out like my first Xeris video, which ended up being a 2-hour-long commentary marathon. So Xeris seems cool, the Space Marine stuff. The Deathwing Terminators are very interesting. The AM stuff is neat. I could even see myself playing Griffin Escort, so that's kind of nice. I think Iden Base probably has the worst name of any card ever, just because the first character being an apostrophe bothers my brain in a way I can't quite describe. But the strategist seems great. Chaos kind of sucks. Dark Eldar kind of sucks, but the Shrieking Exarch...
Dark Eldar really sucks.
That's fair. But Shrieking Exarch seems good. Beleaguered Garrison is good. The Tyranid stuff is interesting, and Burst Forth, that card art, is probably depicting the most fit and live Carnifex I've ever seen. Looks like he spent quite a lot of time on the elliptical trainer, as I'm so fond of, so... Interesting stuff, definitely some hits, but also some misses here, but, you know, this welcome to LCGs, I guess. They can't all be, 5 stars.
No. But
yeah.
The thing with this Dark Eldar that kind of bothers me is, like, I'm not really a Dark Eldar player, so I'm never, like, sad when they don't get great cards, because I'm like, look, Kith's good enough, and she doesn't need help.
Yeah.
But you know what, like, Urian and Morn need some help, and they could benefit from some good cards. So it's like, I don't know. I really wish we just got something better for them, because, like, this Masked Hunter is probably a Kith card if you want to play shitty cards in your Kith deck, and the other one is, like, shitty for everyone. So it's like, I don't know. I just feel like Urian and Morn kind of got shafted. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, but I suppose I'm just curious to see what comes out in Pack 5 and Pack 6 and what the future for Conquest holds. So, I suppose, Sam, as a way of closing out the episode, any final thoughts, anything you'd like to toss out there about Black Crusade, about Conquest, about your personal life?
Well, I'll just stick to Black Crusade, so, you guys have heard the pitch by now. But yeah, come check us out. And if you're interested in organized play 1 game a week, then come check us out.
Sure. So that's blackcrusadeleague.blogspot.com. I suppose it's been quite a while since I've mentioned it, so I'll just say, hey, if you want to help Sam and I to build the statistics database we have for Conquest, be sure to check out, 40kconquest.blogspot.com, and report your games results to Paul Steiner, kind of a champion of this community, and I think he played some sort of judge role at Gen Con for a non-Conquest game. Game of Thrones or something like that. So anyways, he's a stand-up guy, runs a great database. It's only as good as all the data people plug into it. And that is pretty much that. So that was episode 23 of the Tyrantcast. As always, thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Sam, for humoring me. It's my bi-weekly interaction with another human being, so I very much appreciate it. But hope you guys all enjoyed the episode. If you want to get in touch with me, I'm the Hive Tyrant on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. Sam is Sam Mann on Facebook. And if you ever want to make a small contribution to the ongoing Tyrantcast and the Hive Tyrant channel, my endeavor to keep covering Conquest, check out the Hive Tyrant on Patreon. But, as always, thank you so much for listening, and be sure to check back in again soon for much more Conquest LCG content to come.